you Life's Work by Heather Dunmore.
First time in 10 years. I tried to push on down the pet food aisle, but too late. There she was, Meryl Williams, right in front of me. No escape. I didn't know what to say to her after we got through the "how are yous, how's the family?" I didn't tell her about Dawn.
I knew this would happen one day. Now, I usually go to Tesco for the points, and I only went to Sainsbury's because they do this wonderful dill sauce. Can't get it anywhere else. Anyway, I looked up, and there she was, Lynn Brown, blocking the aisle with her trolley. I could hardly pretend I hadn't seen her. She's right in front of me. So we said hello and all the usual stuff. She looked older. Well, it must be all of 8 years, maybe 9.
I didn't know what to say to Meryl. I just didn't know what to say. And then she says, "Are you retired now? Bold as brass." Well, I suppose I am. But I really don't want it broadcast, at least not in the local supermarket. I didn't tell her I'd another wee job after I stopped working with her. Or rather, for her. Only a few hours a week, until even that petered out altogether. They say that ageism doesn't exist. Well, that's not my experience. Say they can't ask your age, but they slip it in. Ask you to fill in one of those equal opportunities forms. Get you to put a cross on the spot mark, 55 to 60, and you'll never hear from them again. It's not wrong. I tell them I'm good with figures, but nobody wants to know. It's not the money. I just want to get out of the house. I do some volunteering at the charity shops, sales, cashing up the till. You'd never believe the mess they can make of that. But it's not the same.
I told her we'd moved, downsized. That ought to keep her happy. We always were a bit flash. I'm not proud of that. Told her about the new place on Crawford Street. Quite tiny, didn't tell her that. Not exactly what we're used to, but we're getting there. Anyway, it was really, really, really funny to see her. Woo. So, told her about the new place on Crawford Street, and that it was just down from the pub where Lynn and I used to go sometimes after we'd had a really busy day, packed into that tiny back room with our typewriters and adding machines. Lynn would have a fit. But I do a few shifts in the pub now too. And it's like I found work I really want to do. But I enjoyed those drinks after work. We got on. Well, I thought so anyway.
She'd moved. Well, that makes sense. They didn't need that great big house. They're close to the pub we used to go to. No surprises there. To tell you the truth, I am amazed they are still together. She had to cover up for him all the time. He was a lazy sod, and the women. Well, I mean, everyone could see what he was like, especially after that other business. She lost weight and looked terrible. We never talked about it. That would have been, well, unprofessional. But she knew, and I knew, and she knew I knew. I'll never work out what she sees in him. I didn't tell her about Dawn.
Seeing her again reminded me what I admired most. Well, actually envied about Lynn, apart from her conscientious nature and natural ability, sadly lacking in me, around figures. It was the support she got from her family. They were always there for her. Oh, that husband of hers and those boys. They'll be men now. I used to hear all about them. Well, you do, don't you, when you work that closely with someone day in, day out. Whereas I was all over the place. I wasn't coping at all. Well, I had a few problems at home. Well, thank goodness all that's in the past now. I mean, it's not perfect, but we're making the best of it. But Lynn and I, we were friends. Close friends. Well, I thought so anyway.
We got on all right, I suppose, much as you can. Although we were quite different with me being older. I loved the work. She hated it. And I was good at it too, so I took on more and more. And I needed the money. Figures had always come easy to me. She had to use a calculator for the slightest thing. We're two strapping lads to bring up. There wasn't much I didn't know about budgets. We talked about all those people coming over here from Cali under lorries. Who's going to employ them and pay their wages? And the really 3 days off I had in 9 years. They'd never have got someone like me again. 3 days sick and nearly dying before I wouldn't go into work. And it's not as if I earned a fortune, quite the opposite. And I could have done with it too with the boys still at home. Easy to see where that was going. I saw the check stubs and it wasn't coming in my direction, I can tell you. I wouldn't have minded if the business could have afforded it.
The rain during the night. That was the best we could come up with. And they say the art of conversation is dying. Well, where would we Brits be if we didn't have the weather to fall back on? All those years working together, and all we had to talk about was the outside temperature. I told her we closed the business. One little white lie won't hurt. I didn't want to go there. So I moved the conversation on to her boys. One is in Hong Kong and the other's in Australia. Something to do with banking. They obviously take after their mother. Oh, she used to be so proud of those boys. I bet she really misses them now. She was such a help to me when mine were young.
I told her about the boys and I could tell she was impressed. After a state school education, that must have shocked her after all the money they spent. I tried not to let on how much I missed them. Her kids are growing up now too. What a nightmare they were. Bringing a wee one into the office, it's not ideal, is it? Always taking off at a moment's notice for the doctors or sports day or any old excuse. I carried that woman. It was the business of the redundancy that got me in the end. I guess it was the beginning of the end for them too. Jonathan, he did the deliveries. He'd been with the company longer than me, over 12 years. He was like another son to me, Jonathan. Well, I couldn't just stand there and let it happen. He put years of his life into that firm, no job to go to. Well, it came to a head and I hit the roof. Out it all came in one big rush. The extra work, robbing the business blind, that lousy, awful husband of hers, the lousy pay while she swung in and out whenever she felt like it. The look on her face, you should have seen it. I might as well have stabbed her in the back with a pitchfork.
It was the way she left. It was so sudden. And that terrible row. I mean, I was in shock for days. I just hadn't realised. I must have been blind or stupid. Well, I knew we could never go back, so we paid her up and gave her a glowing reference. I thought she needed the money. Anyway, that's all in the past now. So I decided that we should stay on neutral ground today. So I recommended the deal source and we went our separate ways. She had a trolley full of nice things. I have to be so careful now. Sad, really. probably never see her again. Such a shame it ended so badly all those years ago. But I'm glad I bumped into her. It gave a kind of closure somehow. Although I do wish that I'd had a chance to say sorry. Sorry for being such a cow. Somehow there just wasn't the opportunity. Well, I'm older now, hopefully a bit wiser. But sorry for realising that you can't expect an employee to be your friend no matter how hard you try. It's not a natural relationship and it never will be. I just hadn't realised that at the time. I took her for granted. I bet she and Don are enjoying their retirement now. Lucky old things.
I probably went over the top all those years ago. Not a lot I can do about that now. She begged me to stay. I'm a bloody good worker. But I couldn't. Not after that. I knew it would never be the same. Then she went on and on about some fancy sauce she was buying. Probably still living the life of Riley way beyond her means. And we parted. Funny, she didn't seem in a hurry to go. I'm glad I didn't tell her Don's dead. Asbestosis. 42 years of fireman. Loved his work. That's how he got it. We got compensation. No good to him now. Doesn't compensate you for losing a soulmate. It wasn't pretty. I'm still struggling with it. I don't need her pity. I've got my pride. Too much time in my hands. I miss the company, the boys and Don. And I'd never say it. Well, certainly not to her. I miss the job too.